Hi, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. I'll turn the spotlights on you so you wake up. Come on up, honored guests. I think I sit in the middle here as old media / new media. Maybe I'll be the hybrid. I'll break you.
There's a great contrast there.
So, we're talking about how data will save the media industry. We'll start with Will. What's interesting is we have two speakers here who I think have very different views around some of these topics that we talk about a lot, and we're going to name names, so stick around in terms of who we think is actually creatively using data and perhaps who we will be wondering whatever happened to them this time next year. So we have Gansca, who you may know from Knotch, who I think interestingly has pivoted your business model recently, and we'll talk about that in terms of more toward branded content and less toward media, in part because they get it and we don't, perhaps. Hello, old new media. You're actually, I think, more new media. Daniel Steil, Focus Online. It is in Germany. I'm not sure if everybody knows it, but it has been the fastest growing media property online with 13.5 million unique users. You're doing a lot of creative work as well with branded content and also on the editorial side. And I want to start with you. First of all, let's talk about will data save the media, and tell us a little bit about what you've noticed having been talking to all of the media heads. What kind of reaction are we leveraging data the way we should?
Totally. Well, before I do that, I actually want a show of hands. Who here is in the media world? I just want to know how many people I'm going to offend.
Who's not in the media world?
Awesome.
Aren't we all in the media world?
Well, it's true. It's
Producing
true.
our own
But trying to make money from it is what I'm saying.
Who's losing money in the media world?
Who's losing money? Right, right. I'm a big data nerd. I know I don't look like much of a nerd, but it's one of the reasons why I started my company. And trying to sort of make the business model happen, I was going into a lot of these really large media companies trying to tell them about the value of participation data, which is not just attention data, it's sort of a layer below. It goes more into audience interests and audience sentiment. And you know, on the one hand, in theory, everyone was super excited. I mean, in first meetings, it was like, how fast can we do this? But then what I noticed was that truly, if the media companies aren't really being pushed by someone who's paying them to source this type of data, it will be very difficult for them to make it happen.
So explain a little bit about what Knotch does. So this is, has everybody used it? Basically, it's where you've got this image and you scroll your mouse over it and you sort of give a reaction to the content you've just seen.
So what we do is we essentially tell brands everything they need to know to understand the impact of their content. And the bigger theme there is that a lot of advertising isn't just traditional banner ad anymore. It's moving into content, right? So brands are creating videos and articles to try to reach their audiences in a completely new way. And so for a campaign, they would have a purpose.
You can't hear. But so talk about why because I want to get Daniel in here to dispute with you. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I think I can hear you. Can you hear? Okay, yeah. So this is for if you want to sing a song between. But talk a little bit about the pivot.
I really like this little thing.
Do
so
you?
I'm sad it doesn't work.
It does work actually. I'm going to take it away. Oh, is it not? Okay, it doesn't work.
Yeah, they just decided to close it. I think they thought I looked too cool with it.
So why the switch to branded content?
Because I was just about to say, so essentially the purpose of a branded content campaign is usually qualitative, which means a brand would want to increase brand love. But there's really no way to measure that. So brands are investing $10 million in this campaign, and they're looking at clicks to understand if they've managed to increase brand love. You know, it doesn't really work. And I think from the perspective of a publisher, there's a benefit to not really having great measurements because you can ask for more money the less you're being measured, right? So we come in and help brands pay you less.
So is that so? Okay, so talk a little bit about what you're not using this tool right now, are you?
I can't because it's not online at the moment.
Not yet.
Yes.
Well, if you want to be a beta partner, you need to tweet about us.
Yeah.
So.
We'll talk a little. I think also give some context for the German market because I feel like we sometimes underestimate the differences even in terms of what you can gather as a publisher, data and how you can use it.
I also have a first question. Who of you used Facebook today? Yeah.
To post a photo of your child or to find your news?
Yeah. And at first I want to say, at the moment we have this situation that there are 4 big players on the market. That's Google, it's Facebook, it's Apple, and it's Amazon. And normally the publisher use called Google Ad slots on their site, and everybody knows that. If you search an article and you go to a website afterwards, on the ad slots you have a Google ad. And Google has very, very particular data of everybody here in this room. But in my opinion, this is old school, because Facebook has now much more better data. Because Facebook
doesn't give you the data, though.
No, they don't, because they are a closed shop network.
Right.
So they don't give us.
So what good is it for you? How do you use?
We have not so much data as Facebook have. What we have is, we know the view time the user have on our site. We know with a cookie, does this user visit our site in the last month, for example. We know how long does the user scroll down on our site and when does he bounce the site. And if he gave us a double opt-in, because in Germany you need a double opt-in to send a newsletter, you need an opt-in for the email address, and then the user have to confirm, and then we can give him.
That sounds very old school to me.
Yes.
And so is that where you are at this point? Is that sufficient for you to is that going to save the media as we know it? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, let me actually say something to the comparison you were making between Facebook and what media companies gather. It seems like you're in awe of the sort of data that Facebook has and the fact that they can target you so well. I think that the really big untapped potential that media companies are overlooking is precisely that, getting a lot more granular data from their audiences in real time, using content as a medium for the connection. And so I think that using Knotch, obviously, really large media companies could get insane audience intelligence that would then lead to really great targeting.
But if we have a look on it, because at the moment there are a lot of very good but really small data tools on the market. It's Parsley, it's Omniture, it's...
Yeah, but they're all analyzing consumption behavior, which is what you were saying, attention, clicks,
well,
right?
so I want to get the middle, I want to get a sense of what's going to happen to the media landscape. We've had a lot of talk about Vice, for example. And you're growing, you know, despite not using Knotch, although maybe you could be growing even faster if you were. But give me some sense of who gets it. I mean, who do you think actually, we are seeing a lot of media sites that are doing very well right now by understanding their audience, by going to different platforms. Are they, in essence, doing what you think we should be doing, which is
I think so,
really
yeah.
understanding
I mean, I'm a big fan of Vice, you know, because basically from all these really big media companies that I was talking to, they were one of the first and only to really get what we do and understand the value.
You're working with them?
Yeah. So
are you working with any others? Any other media
we
companies?
are, but only testing, so I'd rather not necessarily mention them. I'm going to celebrate Vice today. So what they're doing is essentially two things. One, they're focusing on creating really, really great videos, really great content, right? When you create a video that's 30 minutes long, like Vice does, they have to get the topic right. So they spend a lot of time analyzing their audience for interests and sentiment on those interests so that they know that when they do create that video, it is going to be watched from the beginning to end. That they pride themselves with their engagement along those lines. So I think they're doing that right, for example. So
do you have a lot of, do you have a big difference between how you think about the branded content that you produce versus the editorial content? And do you feel that there's more engagement around the branded content? Because, you know, they're different things. You know, GE may do fantastic content, but it's not, you know, media in the sense of
I think it's a kind of content. For us, for Focus Online, for example, we have two pillars of content. We are the fastest news site in Germany, and we are the biggest service site. But on the biggest service site.
Okay.
But on the other hand, we have branded content. And when the branded content is as good as editorial content is, why shouldn't it be so long on our site as the traffic goes down on it, and then we do the same as we do on our editorial content, we will put it on the back. And that's what I talked with my director marketing, and we agreed. And when I told this to other editors-in-chief in Germany, they look very crazy because they don't do that. But I think that could be.
What are they doing? What?
In their opinion, editorial content and branded content is completely separated. But I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so.
Let me ask a little bit about just the earned media side here. by that I mean not advertising, not native content. Where do you think people are going to get their news going forward? Let's talk about the media landscape in general. Seeing the trends you're seeing, are we going to be getting more from the branded content side because they'll understand our delight and they'll serve it up? Or do you think that it's just that the media model will be relying more and more on that because that's where the money is?
I see two trends, kind of polarizing trends. One is going to be, Twitter. I think if they play out their cards right, they might just become the most relevant, really quick information media company. That's on the one hand. And on the other hand, I think
it's headlines
yeah, exactly. Yeah, just relevant headlines. And on the other hand, the quality of the content that is being produced by either brands or their studios or publishers is going to matter more and more. And so I think kind of where we direct our attention is going to determine the winner. I think the quality of the content is really going to matter a lot.
You don't get a lot of, Twitter's interesting because that's like Newsac. That's a tsunami of stuff coming at you, basically. And is that what you think sort of the model will be like? Because I think that, when you get so many different pieces, there's a lot of chaos of information. People pay more to get 5 pieces of information that are relevant to them than they do 5,000 that are coming through your Twitter feed or any other form.
Yeah, therefore it's interesting because most of the people trust in Facebook and their Facebook friends. They trust more in Facebook than in a publisher.
Yeah, but Facebook's taking content from other places.
Yes, but they are, in this case, they are like a publisher because they don't aggregate content, because the people aggregate the content there. And what a friend of mine liked, what a friend of mine shared, I trusted more in than another site published on their homepage, for example, because we as Focus Online, we publish every 23 seconds a new article.
You publish every 23 seconds a new article?
Every 23 seconds a new article, and 70 videos per day.
And how do you make your money? If you're not using Knotch, give me some sense of, is the mix of sort of revenue very traditional in terms of advertising, brand? How is it changing, and how are you leveraging data to try and get more revenue sources, since that's what we're really curious about?
We are believing in native advertising, in transaction, and we don't believe in display advertising. In our thoughts, display advertising decreases from now to 2018 to 19% of our total revenues.
Does that sound about right? Nobody loves display ads.
Who believes in display advertising, right?
Pardon?
Who believes in display ads? Raise your hand. No, but but I think so. You're basically relying on going the model that a lot of other German publishers. When you look at the U.S.,
yes.
How do you see it playing out here? You obviously have been talking to a lot of companies. Do you feel that we're approaching it the same way? Do you feel that we're leveraging data differently?
For example, I visited Quartz on Tuesday, and Quartz has, in my opinion, a quite good model. They do a 360-degree deal with a partner. And
like a big bear hug.
Yeah. And so they create the content for them in like a partner studio. It's completely separated from the editorial team. And for example, they did it with GE, and they published infographics. Normal publisher can't pay because an interaction designer is so expensive that a normal publisher can't publish that. And so they use GE, for example, to give their users very, very high content.
Well, I want to stand up and just make the distinction. I'm sounding very old school, but there is a difference between reportage, journalism, earned media, and a beautifully produced, whether it's a documentary, but native content is different. We may consume it. I appreciate the infographics of a GE, for example, but I'm not looking at that as news. So how do you see, let's take the listicle type sites that we see a lot of, rhymes with Muzzmead or whatever, but what would be the future of that in this environment, or that kind of approach to news? Because they've had a lot of success, but I think there's more of a sense that maybe different models are emerging going forward.
I come from the tech world, and if you look at the valuations of the new and sexy publishers on the market, from BuzzFeed to Vice to Vox, that have recently raised rounds, I think they sort of speak for themselves, right? So the more clickbaity of those three has the lowest valuation, because the chances to monetize that are not that great, right? And sort of going into branded content as well, brands find it really hard to pay for just clicks, because clicks don't really achieve the purpose that they want. And it's usually, in the case of G, for example, brand knowledgeability. In the case of Diet Coke, it's brand love. So it's a lot deeper than that. So I think publishers with deeper engagement are going to win.
So I'm going to put myself in different seats. I know we're, we can take some questions from the audience too, but I am now the head of a major media company. I don't have, I'm putting both of you in my seat. What should I be doing that I'm not doing now? Besides perhaps using your product, what do you see New York Times? I mean, everybody's they're using Oculus Rift. They're trying to sort of leverage some of the new technologies. What more could they be doing to actually deploy data more strategically to either transform the revenue model, the type of media they produce?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the Oculus Rift stuff, I mean, people talk about it, but it's still very experimental. And in fact, the sad thing is that even data is very experimental for media companies. And so, you know, if I were the head of a media company, I think
you can stand in a refugee camp and feel what it's like and see the kids coming up to you and like, I mean, that's a media experience. That's a reporter in the field doing that.
It's true.
That's not data, but that's leveraging technology. What would I be doing to leverage data better? Because we're all aware of the power of it, but there's a limit, you're saying, to how it's being used in a way that can be helping the sustainability of the field.
Well, again, I would focus on creating really great content, like, you know, being in a refugee camp. But on the other hand, I would focus on how to monetize that content by better targeting these audiences based on their preferences.
Now, do you agree? Do you think that's going to be the future? Because you don't crowdsource what the next color is going to be this fall, right? It's like, I don't know, designer, you tell me. So there's a limit to how much you essentially use delight as you don't try to backtrack on that. You try to serve up things that will engage your audience, do more of it, but there's also some judgment involved as well in what you're doing.
I think that's what Anna said. Content is very necessary and content is also king. And if you have a content curve, for example, what does the people really love and what does people really need? For example, it's when you see it, it's news from 1 to 20%. And at the other hand is long reportages, for example, they are the other 20%. And then you have a dead zone. The dead zone is about 60%. And I think long and short form, that would be the future for a news site.
That middle band.
The middle band is dead. And then we can go to a brand and then we can sell our content. Because when the engagement on our side is really high, the people also love the brands who do their advertising, their native advertising, or for example, other e-commerce deals there.
Just wanted to add one more thing. In today's world, everyone's becoming a publisher. Brands are becoming a publisher. There's more and more of these new publishers coming up. And the only scarce resource is really attention. So who's going to win the battle in terms of a media company is going to be the company that's going to manage to get you to actually engage with the piece of content, which is becoming more and more difficult. If advertising is truly moving into branded content, it will become a very fierce battle. So I think whatever gives you an edge, which I personally believe is data, is going to make you win.
Is there anything that you think?
There's one other point, because branded content have to be the chance to be shared on Facebook or in social media. And have you ever been shared a normal ad? I don't think so. So you can reach much more people than you reach with a normal ad.
Is there anything you'd want to say? And if anybody has questions from the audience, I know we don't have a lot of time, but if you have a question, raise your hand and we'll take some questions. But I do want to say, let's talk a little bit about that user content and the attention. Even take Facebook. They are not a content producer, but we have a lot of people from new media in here. How should Facebook, if I'm suddenly putting you in the role of being head of Facebook, what could they be doing to either leverage data more creatively with brands like us, but even some of that user data,
they should share them with us.
They should share it. They're not going to, but let's talk about some of that user data. I mean, that's been an issue in the past where people are essentially saying, yes, you can use my pictures, and then there's some blowback on that. Do you feel like we're going to be creating more interesting media products by having our users actually create it? Because we've had that, it didn't work out so well, but I feel like that's something that you're seeing more media companies talk about.
So just to clarify, is the question
I'm putting you in the role of Facebook. What would you be doing differently? Just, it's all perfect, it's all good, but let's put you in the tech side. How does data save media from that vantage point?
Well, I think the question is how can media companies learn from Facebook, really? But I mean, I would probably emphasize really granular data collection. But I mean, they're already doing that. You know.
We're doing that, aren't we? Anything you would say in terms of what excites you? Let's talk a little bit about what's on the horizon, and as we go forward, what will we be talking about this time next year that you're doing differently? Either maybe pain points that you're trying to solve with data, or ways you'd like to leverage data differently?
I think that the publisher have to think about to do a data network also with competitors, because if you only use your own data, you don't get enough data.
You want a co-opetition with your... Are they excited about that idea too?
Yes.
They are?
Yes.
Yeah, but in order for that to be trustworthy, you need an external company to come in and create the standard. So that's definitely something I want to do.
Yeah.
Are you working on that right now, or?
We are working on it with Broder, and we have an internal network, and if there are other competitors came to us and asked for it, I think it would be a possibility for us to talk to them, yes.
And one last question, how does the revenue model look differently? Because ultimately we're talking about the financial health in addition to the content. Given the world that we're in, and sort of even as you see brands leveraging your tool, how do you think it changes the mix in terms of, is it just that you get more stickiness, the content becomes more valuable? Because one of the things you were saying earlier is because we've been charging too much for what we deliver, perhaps, or we don't give enough information around how much engagement we have. What looks differently, you think, even a few years from now?
I think the lines between branded content and editorial content are going to become very blurred. I think brands are going to be given the chance to sponsor, phrases within editorial pieces, and it'll just become a lot more granular. So, yeah.
And is that a positive move? Do you think that saves the media, or is that it saves advertising?
I think it saves the media. Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so, because native advertising and branded content is the possibility for a big brand to have a big audience. And if you can leverage with data, it's quite good.
And if you can make people smarter. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Please bother us off stage. We condense this a little bit.